guests as we discuss the incredible work of educators organising during this pandemic. The National Education Union has recruited tens of thousands of new members, thousands of new workplace reps getting active in their workplace, and hundreds of thousands of people attracted to their Zoom calls across the pandemic. A big comrades welcome to two excellent comrades in Venda and Chris. Welcome both. I hope you're well. And first of all, I just want to say, for you to say to people where you're from and what your role is in the union, so people understand where you're organising. So I'll come to Venda first. Thanks, Venda.
My name's Venda Premkumar. I'm an English teacher, but I'm also a Joint District Secretary for Redbridge National Education Union. Thanks
so much. And Chris?
Yeah, I'm Chris Denton. I'm a physics teacher at a secondary school in Coventry. I'm also the Joint District Secretary for Coventry, and I'm on the National Executive for the NEU as well.
Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate your support on our first show. So I just have a few questions, but really I'm interested in hearing from you both about this period now. So my first question really is to both of you, and I'll take whichever one of you first, but how have educators been organising during this pandemic? Could you just explain that to people on the call?
Yeah, I can start if you like. Thank you. I think the use of WhatsApp has been really instrumental. So we had a WhatsApp pre-pandemic of with 30 activists, and now we stand at 110 activists, mostly made of reps. So we've got about 90 reps on there, and then the rest are activists who are heavily involved. So that's been really useful because we're able to share experiences, and activists are able to see how their school compares with other schools in the district. So that's been, so fundamental, such a really important part of organising. And another thing I would say is Zoom. So we, pre-pandemic, we used to have meetings with 50 members. That used to be a really big turnout. But because of Zoom, we've been able to have over 300 members attend our meetings. So because you don't have to physically go to places. So yeah, it's really enabled us to, both of those things I think have been really instrumental in building our activist base, but also building engagement from the wider membership as well.
Thanks, Venda. And Chris, anything to add? I mean, technology's got to be a big part of this, hasn't it? But there must have been other things as well that have been happening during this period. Do you want to elaborate any further?
Well, I think technology has helped us in many ways, because obviously with the pandemic, it's meant that the normal day-to-day trade union work that you do, going into workplaces, speaking to members face to face, has proved to be incredibly difficult, obviously. But as Venda said, the use of Zoom has meant that we could accelerate that. So, for example, in the lead up to in June, where we opposed the reopening of schools on a much wider basis, whereas historically the likes of myself and Venda may have been able to get one after school meeting in per day, we were able to hit 6 or 7 Zooms a day. So rather than just managing to be at one school with several activists across the district, you could hit 30, 40 schools within a week. So there have been definitely benefits to looking at technology more and being open to that use. And as Venda said, the use of things like WhatsApp, it isn't really anything new for us. It's just using different technology, because the key for us has always been to talk to as many people as you can and to get other people doing as many things as you can. So the key with the WhatsApp, just like Venda in Coventry, we have the same. We have lots and lots of reps and activists on a WhatsApp. But the key is it's not just having us talking together, it's then asking our reps what are they going to do? Are they going to go and talk to their members and getting that dialogue going? And I think that's been what, in a very difficult situation, has probably increased the amount of dialogue we're able to have with our members across the city and across the country.
Thanks, and that sounds fantastic. Just the sheer scale of who you're able to organise in what very quick time, I think is really exciting about that. So as a result of that being potentially easier, what kind of gains have you seen then, maybe starting with Venda or Chris, whoever, what kind of gains are we seeing then, and how are people doing in terms of the communicating, but then what can people achieve at the workplace and wider?
Well, we've recruited over 60 reps just, from the start of the pandemic. So, and our membership has increased by about 10%, which I think is in line with the national increase in membership as well. It means that we are, as reps are talking to each other, as I said, they see what is, what's happening well in other schools, what other schools are doing well. And if that's not happening in their schools, they feel much more, they have a reason to organise and to fight for the same things. So, for example, in the June 1st opening, we were able to push back because of, the high engagement, and because of, lots of activists willing to take part in everything that we were doing, we were able to push back the June 1st opening by 2 weeks. And about 80% of our schools didn't open on June the 1st as the government intended. And whereas there was one school, one academy, a math academy, they said, we're going to do what our math tells us. And so the organisers and the reps at that school felt, this is not fair. We're in Redbridge, rest of Redbridge is closed. And so they kind of started strike action, initiated strike action, but never had to kind of carry the threat out because, they won in the end. Most recently, we were able to threaten an industrial action at a borough-wide level because when the schools opened at the start of January and when we went into national lockdown, in our district, some schools were insisting that educators come into school to deliver remote learning. And we thought this was, not only was it undermining the national lockdown, it was also putting the school community and school workers at a really high risk. And so we had, one school, we had 25 members sending in Section 44 letters. And in support of those members, we decided to start a borough-wide survey to see if our members would be willing to support those workers and others in schools where this was happening. And we would have never had the confidence to do something like that previously. The idea of mobilising 76 schools, 3,000 membership, it was unthinkable. So I think, that tells you, where our confidence is really. And even though we didn't have to carry the threat out, but the people who responded, the members who responded to the survey, 92% said yes to strike action. So, there's a huge amount of confidence there about what we can do and what we're able to achieve. And that's because of all the solidarity and the kind of sharing of experiences and the greater organisation that's been enabled as a result of this. It hasn't just been the activists and the NEU though. We've also reached out to parents and we've been able to organise together with parents as well, and on school openings, because we thought that was important to do. So we've been able to get parents on board, and we had a meeting with over 600 parents attending around the June the 1st opening, and we've kind of continued to hold on to those relationships and continue to build as well. So we're kind of branching out wider than just the educators into wider community groups as well.
Sounds fantastic. It seems from the outside, certainly, that confidence and the ability to be able to do things together collectively has been really important during this pandemic. Chris, what are the kind of feeling in Coventry? Does it mirror what vendors saying, and how's that confidence manifest itself, and any gains that workers have been able to make during this period and working together? Thanks.
Yeah, it absolutely reflects what vendors just said. I think two important things have happened at the same time, which has made a material difference. And one is that right from the start of the pandemic, it's been clear to everybody that the government's response to it has been absolutely woeful. And if you look at the DfE's response throughout this, that has been changing day by day. And the old certainties that were there from managers are absolutely not there anymore. And that, combined with the fact that the NEU took convincing action in June and carried it through and delayed the opening. In January, we took that step, which effectively made the government do an enormous U-turn. It's given members a fantastic confidence. And the fact that we could mobilise so quickly, as vendors said, in Coventry, when we had that call around action, around the response to January the 4th, we were able to call 2 meetings within a few days, 350 members at each. We got a fantastic response in terms of members using the law to keep their school and communities safe. Within that first week, we had a situation where the local authority were parroting the Department for Education advice and trying to bring all nursery members into school and pressuring all members and reps in special schools in as well. And obviously, as vendors said, that is enormously dangerous for the communities. And if you compare to what we were able to do before this new way of working, that would have been a whole series of events that would have had to take place. What we did was we called an emergency meeting for later that evening. We got 90 people to it. This was within about a 4 hours notice just for those members who were involved in nursery and special school. We told the authority we were intending to ballot up our members for strike action, and a whole process played out within 4 or 5 hours, and the local authority pulled back because they realized that the members were confident. And I think that's what this January has shown us, that January the 4th wasn't just a moment, but it's a turning point where members are starting to see that if they organise in their schools, if they organise across districts and across the union, they can make real significant changes in their schools. We had another situation last week as well, where our authority were one of the ones that were planning the lateral flow tests as a replacement for close contact isolation. Obviously, our members were really worried about that, the safety implications. Again, we were able to raise that with the authority, threaten moving towards further action, and they pulled that within the day. So the confidence that members are getting across the district, but also within their own schools, to regain that power of agency and to start to define, whether it's on safety, whether it's on what does the curriculum look like, whether it's what does online learning look like. People are really starting to take control of those things within their own schools, and I think it's really empowering for our members.
I think that sounds fantastic, and it certainly feels like there is a developing momentum, and I think we've seen a lot of support for educators during this period, certainly across the movement. I guess to either of you, really, what do you think the future looks like? So obviously we don't know how the pandemic's gonna continue. It's looking pretty dire at this stage, it's fair to say, and things certainly in terms of educators. But in light of all of this new technology, all of this newfound momentum, confidence, new workplace groups, more members than ever, and the ability to organise quickly, what does that look like when we do start to move back to what people might say is a semblance of normality in terms of workplace meetings, how we organise? Are there things we can learn and take into that big period, do you think? Yeah,
absolutely. I think going forward, we're going to have to take into account a lot of these gains that we've that have come about through adversity. I think we wouldn't just fall back into the same old system that we had before, because we can see the speed that we can act with this, a number of members that we can get to immediately. As vendors said before the pandemic, if we'd have thought in one small sector we could call a meeting of 90 members within a few hours, we could call a meeting of 350 people within a day, that just wasn't a reality. So I think there are obviously massive benefits to going and speaking to people face to face and getting in and having those conversations. But the baby isn't going to be thrown out with the bathwater. Obviously, lots of these gains we are going to take through this.
Venda, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things wrong in education before the pandemic, and we weren't able to fight the kind of myriad of attacks we were facing as a profession, and the things that we were able to win on wasn't enough really. The newfound confidence, the fact that reps, school union groups feel they've got agency now to challenge and to hold management to account. We've got to capitalise on all of that. We've got to take that forward. There is no going back to what it was pre-pandemic. I mean, for example, we had in Redbridge, we had 7 teaching assistants. They put in section 44 and they didn't go into work until they got a risk assessment that they were satisfied with. Previous to that, the head just thought they can come in, and she could instruct them to do that. I mean, that is incredible that they felt the confidence to do that. And I think that needs to continue, and we need to support our members. We need to keep giving strong, bold messages, and we need to start changing things, because when we change things for the better as a union, that's, you know, that's going to be better education for our children, and that's better for our society as well.
Thanks a lot. Absolutely. I certainly would trust you as educators over anything the government is going to say about education. I think this pandemic's proved that more than ever. I think coming really to my last question to you, and anything else that you want to add, but how can we as a society continue to support educators in their organising? What can other trade unionists do? What other people can they get? What activities can they get involved in? How can they show that solidarity with you? Because I think it's very strong at the moment, and it's really good to capture that, to keep that momentum and confidence going.
Okay, I would say I think we have to keep sharing our successes. Really, we were looking to Chicago teachers. I remember attending conferences where we listened to Chicago teachers. And now I recently attended a meeting where they were asking us and getting us to share our experiences and our successes. I think we've got to raise the bar higher for trade unionists, and we've got to say, you know, we want more. We can't kind of continue the kind of oppression and the injustice that we were expected to. So I think we've got to keep sharing our successes like we're doing on this platform, so that there is confidence given to others, and there is, you know, they take solidarity from that as well.
Fantastic. I think I might have to get you to write a section. We have a Strike Stories section, which is about people that are involved in their organising. I might have to get you to write something, Vendor, so we can share your story wider. Chris, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think those solidarity messages are so important, because Vendrell have found this as well. When you go in and speak to staff in schools, they often fear, because they see what is printed in the media, they often feel that people don't necessarily support our causes. Whereas when you go out to the public, whenever we have strike action and you meet people on the streets, we're always supported. So those messages of solidarity are so important. And we know whether it's strike action over conditions in schools, whether it's keeping our communities safe, whether it's lots of those wider campaigns that we've got about reshaping what our education system looks like so that it meets the needs of our children, so that we're looking at things like decolonising the curriculum so that it fits our society today, whether we're looking at changes that need to happen in terms of getting rid of things like SATs or reshaping what the exam system in secondary looks like. We know we've got a vast amount of support amongst the public. So those sorts of solidarity messages and solidarity acts that Vendor talks about are so important, so that it's absolutely clear to our members that the reality is the vast majority of the public support us on this. They know that as educators, we know, and we're always fighting for what is best for the children in our classes. We know what kind of education system they could have, and unfortunately they don't have that at the moment. And if we can continue doing all of those things that Vendor's just said, and those messages of solidarity can come in, then that's absolutely brilliant. And as Vendor said earlier, we do reach out to parents a hell of a lot. We've launched something in Coventry this week where what we're trying to do is we know that as well as issues to do with the health and safety through the pandemic and the absolute dire situation in terms of people's health, we know that people are being affected financially as well. So one of the things we are doing as a huge solidarity thing in Coventry is we've started a Just Giving page to collect lots of money through the public, but also we're making a huge donation from the union locally and regionally as well, so that we can start to get those things that the children need in order to be able to succeed, because we know we have so many children living in poverty. And whether it's about access to laptops or even the very basics like crayons, scissors, glue, so that they can do all of those fun things at home, we want to make sure that we're building those links with the community, with parents, and so that they see we're continually fighting for them. And if people want to get involved in that shows solidarity both ways as well. It shows that people are supporting us in what we are doing.
Thank you both so much. It's been really heartening and inspiring start to our first ever show. So thank you for supporting Strike Map and this show, comrades. Solidarity is what we're all about at Strike Map UK. So we're great to hear those stories, and we wish you all the best of luck. Educators are absolute heroes. You've been fantastic. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much. And